afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the King and Pocket Aces, brought to you by RotoBaller.com. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony Aniano, and joining me, as he always does, the King of Fantasy Sports, ready to bring to you the Week 2 sleeper and value plays for your fantasy football season. My good friend and co-host, Mr. Scott Engel. Scott, Week 1 is in the books. Here we are, getting ready to load up Week 2. How you doing, my friend?
Doing good in the Polar Fantasy League. The New York Bodega Cats are 1-0.
There it is.
Comeback victory over the Ohio Goats.
I like it. You and Real Talk Raph running that one. And guys, I want to remind everybody.
Kyler Murray.
I want you to win big in 2021 with RotoBaller.com's NFL Premium Pass. Are you ready to dominate your season-long and DFS leagues? RotoBaller NFL's Premium Pass and Draft Kit includes rankings, projections, cheat sheets for all formats. Get DFS tools, lineup optimizers, and premium Slack chats. Join in on the winning. Take 50% off any premium pass. If you use my promo code ACES or Scott promo code KING for an additional 10% discount, visit rotoballer.com/radio. Sign up today and start rotoballing like a boss. Scott, before we get to our sleepers for the week, let's be honest. Week 1 was a bit odd, to say the least, wasn't it?
Yeah, but that always happens. People surprise us in Week 1. Now we're wondering whether Elijah Williams can be this year's James Robinson. But that San Francisco backfield, it's always subject to change. But a lot of people asking why exactly was Elijah Mitchell the lead guy? And it didn't have to do with special teams. Kyle Shanahan just indicated that Elijah Mitchell and JaMychal Hasty had outplayed Trey Sermon in the preseason, but Mitchell's going to have to work on his pass blocking in order to stay on the field.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting. People spent a lot of fab on Elijah Mitchell. Hopefully, he remains active and vital, I guess you could say, to that 49ers offense. But Scott, let's get to it. Let's get to our sleeper and value plays for Week 2. We'll start at the quarterback position. Who is your sleeper value play?
Now, this is from mainly people in 2 quarterback leagues, and there's a lot of people playing super flex. So I'm going to go with Teddy Bridgewater against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Watch him extensively against the Giants. Good decision making. He's not explosive, but in a 2 quarterback super flex league, I think he can put up some pretty good numbers this week. He'll take his deep shots when he has to, but he distributes the ball very, very well. Even with the loss of Jerry Jeudy, he's able to throw to KJ Hamler, to Tim Patrick, to Cortland Sutton, to both of his tight ends as well. So I think you can get 3 touchdowns this week out of Teddy Bridgewater, who's also not afraid to run the ball when the pocket collapses.
No, he's not, and he looked pretty good last week. My quarterback value play, take a look at Kirk Cousins. I know Arizona played well against Tennessee, but Kirk Cousins utilized all his weapons. Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and KJ Osborne, all with each 9 targets. We know what Dalvin can do out of that backfield. If Kirk Cousins is going to throw the ball 49 times, 350 yards and 2 touchdowns, you'll sign up for that. And don't forget, he threw for 35 touchdown passes last season. So it's not necessarily fluky to see him throw the ball that much. Scott, running back position, your first sleeper at the running back position.
It's somebody who, popped up on the pregame report last week that he was going to get more work. Some people thought it would be at the expense of DeAndre Swift, but it wasn't. Jamal Williams facing against his former team, the Packers, this week, heavily involved in the passing game. Jared Goff threw the ball a lot, but before they had mounted that furious comeback, which involved the wide receivers, he was utilizing his running backs a lot. So there are a lot of people who are kind of desperate at running back and drafted Jamal Williams as sort of a depth piece, a running back floor. You can start him as a flex or even at desperation in an RB2 this week, playing against his former team, going to be involved in the offense. Jared Goff kind of impressed me last week. We thought he had no weapons, but he got everybody involved. Let's see if he can keep that up but I think you can at least keep the running backs involved.
Speaking of running backs who are involved, Naheem Hines of the Indianapolis Colts. Yes, he's the backup, Scott, to Jonathan Taylor, but second in the team in targets. Carson Wentz looked for his running backs more than he even looked for any of his wide receivers in week one. Naheem Hines, 8 targets, 6 receptions, 48 yards, even got 9 carries. Naheem Hines is going to get 17 touches per game. He's a terrific play in a flex role, low-end RB2. Give me Naheem Hines as a sleeper for week 2. Scott, who's your second running back for this week?
I'm going to go with Melvin Gordon this week, going against the Houston Texans. I think fantasy players are still unsure which Denver running back to go with, and you and I were even talking about in one of our big money leagues. Melvin Gordon ripped off a late touchdown run last week when the defense was really tired. And when I'm watching him and Javonte Williams is talented, but Melvin Gordon's running like a veteran. Javonte Williams is running more like a rookie. I think he'll eventually hit his stride, but Melvin Gordon is much more decisive and authoritative right now, and it's a really good matchup for the Denver Broncos this week. I like Melvin Gordon to get in the end zone again. Eventually, Javonte Williams might overtake him, but as we see sometimes with rookies, they got to get acclimated. Later in the year, maybe he's running with more confidence, maybe even 2-3 weeks from now. But right now, Melvin Gordon looks like the more productive running back to me on Denver.
This is absolutely terrific for me because I'm going with Javonte Williams as my second sleeper running back of the week. And really, I think what it comes down to here is...
Way to confuse the viewer.
I know, but the point is, I think you could use both players this week against this Jacksonville defense that allowed 3 touchdowns to running backs, 1 each from Houston last week. Ingram ran one in, Lindsey ran one in, and even David Johnson caught one for a touchdown. Listen, Mel Gordon had that 70-yard run. It was late in the game against the Giant defense that played almost the entire game because the Giant offense is terrible. Javonte Williams led the team in carries, 14 carries compared to Mel Gordon's 11, so it was close enough to call it a split. But nonetheless, Javonte Williams' role is not going away, and Scott said it, you can pick on this Jaguars run defense.
I have a gut feeling, and my gut is considerable, that the Giants defense is going to rebound this week. And you may be watching this after Thursday night. So hopefully my prediction may good.
But the defense may play better. I don't expect their offense to. But those are 2 different conversations. Scott, let's slide over to the wide receiver position. Give me your first sleeper wide receiver for week 2.
I was skeptical heading into the year, but Mike Williams had a pretty good opener. Now, I said last week that Justin Herbert wasn't going to get rattled by that Washington defense, and he didn't. He still hung in there and threw for over 300 yards, and Mike Williams had a pretty good game. Now they go against the Dallas secondary. I think Mike Williams is going to go over 100 yards and score a touchdown. We've seen Dallas is going to be involved in shootouts all year long. Take the over no matter who they're playing.
Yep. My first sleeper wide receiver, New England Patriot Nelson Agholor. Interesting stat. Nelson Agholor last year caught a touchdown 1 in every 6 receptions, averaged 18.7 yards per catch last year, was involved second to Jacoby Myers in targets for Patriots wide receivers, 7 targets, 5 receptions. And the Jets have already shown that they're a secondary that can give up a big play, with X-Jet going for a 57-yard touchdown last week. That's Aguilar's specialty. Give me Nelson Agholor versus the New York Jets.
So Nelson Agholor is going to be doing this week like Robbie Anderson was.
I hope he does. I hope he does. Jet secondary struggles against the deep play, and Agholor, to me, now Agholor is Deshaun Jackson 10 years ago. That's who he is. Scott, who is your second wide receiver sleeper?
And you're right. The Jets really bit on play action last week. My second sleeper wide receiver is, I haven't been kind to him, and I only met this as a player. He showed me up last week. I'm going to go with Jarvis Landry this week. No Odell Beckham, and once again in another good matchup for the Cleveland Browns. I think Baker Mayfield is going to rely heavily on Jarvis Landry. I think he's going to see a lot of volume this week. you definitely have to play him as a fantasy wide receiver 3.
My second wide receiver, Quintez Cephas of the Detroit Lions. A matchup against
Super
the Green
deep.
Bay, very deep. Against Green Bay, we know they got tore up for 5 passing touchdowns week 1. They should play better, but you said it. Jared Goff looked good. We know Hawkinson and the running backs will be involved, but Quintez Cephas, the line doesn't look great. 3 receptions, 12 yards, although he did get a touchdown, but he did lead all Lions wide receivers with 7 targets. Ty Williams, a concussion, may not be available to play. Quintez Cephas, assuming, and I think it's safe to say Detroit again will be playing from behind against Green Bay. Green Bay will play much better. Quintez Cephas could easily lead this Lion team in wide receiver targets for the 2nd week in a row, Scott.
Yeah, well, we have to see. It was good for 1 week, and I'll go with it for another week. Hopefully it's a trend. We didn't expect the Lions to do much on offense, but they did.
Yep. Now, Scott, final position of the week, the tight end position. Who was your sleeper tight end for week 2?
Baker Mayfield got all of his tight ends last week involved, but in the early going, when he was trying to drive for an early score, he went to Austin Hooper a few times on that first drive. Against Houston, all of the Cleveland tight ends can get involved, but without Odell Beckham, I think you're going to see the tight ends involved a lot. In addition to Jarvis Landry, I'm going with Austin Hooper this week if you need a tight end streamer. I don't always trust Hooper, but my gut tells me a touchdown this week.
My sleeper tight end, Jared Cook of the Chargers. Going against the Dallas defense, Rob Gronkowski tore up that secondary opening night for 8 catches, 90 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Jared Cook was targeted 8 times week 1 by Justin Herbert, 5 catches, 56 yards. It's a safe 10-point floor, in my opinion, for Jared Cook, with, if he gets in the end zone, a lot more. Jared Cook against the Cowboys is my tight end sleeper. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, whether you followed us here on RotoBaller Radio on YouTube or wherever you listen to the RotoBaller Radio podcast. Follow Scott on Twitter at Scott E. The King. Follow me at Aniano Fantasy. Check out all the other great content on RotoBaller.com and RotoBaller Radio. Be smart, be safe, set those lineups, and good luck in week 2, everybody. Have a good one.